Welcome into episode 11 of Short Shifts. I'm Brandon Hofstra, joined here with Vinny Paracelli, and a special guest with us as well in today's episode, Mr. Alex Kyrias. Alex, thanks for being on, I should say. Obviously, we're bringing you in. You have a lot of experience as this episode is all about the playoffs. Give us a little background on yourself quick for the folks who don't know you, but I'm sure they do.
Well, first of all, happy to be making my Short Shifts debut. I mean, this is right up there with, when I was hired in the American Hockey League. I mean, I'm tingling. Anyway, so it's so exciting. No, you know what? All of these new mediums are fun to be a part of. I've been doing this a long time, and I don't want to date myself with anything, but I was back doing media when websites were just becoming a thing. So it's neat to see how far this industry has grown. And, I have a lot of background in the North American Hockey League, as well as some college hockey. Obviously grew up playing. I was a goalie, as probably everybody knows, and a goalie advocate to this day. But no, my first experience in the NHL was working at the team level with a team called the Texas Tornado in 2002. I did that for 5 glorious years, won 3 Robertson Cups in that time, and then, kind of progressed through the ladder. I did not graduate college thinking I would be a broadcaster. It turned out to be like that, mainly because it combined my love for vocal performance and singing and hockey. So I kind of combined that into becoming a broadcaster. And then in 2010, after about 8 years of broadcasting, I decided to kind of take on the current position that I have currently with the North American Hockey League. And so I've been doing that for 13 years. My first Robertson Cup, was all the way back with the Tornado in 2002. That 2002-03 season, I actually handed the Robertson Cup to the Pittsburgh Forge. The commissioner at the time, which wasn't Mark Frankenfeld, wasn't in town. And so basically they shipped the cup to Texas when it was a play-down series with the Pittsburgh Forge. They won Game 4 on Texas ice. So I sort of handed them the trophy. There was no pomp and circumstance or anything. And then, fast forward, obviously, to what we're going to be doing in May at Fogarty Arena with the red carpet and rolling out the cup and presenting it to the captain and really trying to mirror, what the NHL does in terms of, how that goes. So it's interesting to see the progression, but 13 years now with the league. So that's been exciting. And it looks like another exciting playoff March here in 2023.
Before we get into this year, I have to ask, since you've won 3 Robertson Cups, how heavy was it when you lifted it?
I would imagine around that time it was, in the Stanley Cup range, 30 to 35 pounds. And that was before the third tier was put on. And, it kind of went shoulder to shoulder. So it wasn't too bad. And
it's not the behemoth it is today.
Yeah, it's interesting because the cup as it is today is just over 57 pounds. It's broken a couple of times just because of the sheer weight and obviously when it falls or drops, and you never want it to, but accidents do happen. It tends to kind of break in certain places. We've seen the base break, we've seen the cup part break. So it's tough because guys certainly want to take it places when they win it, and that's obviously something that you can do with the cup. I've personally eaten cereal out of it, obviously drinking or had some adult beverages out of it since I was of age, but had it on a boat on Lake Louisville, I remember at one point. So I'm sure it's been everywhere, and that's part of the special aura of that cup. That cup has not changed. It's added a third tier, and really it just got heavier. It continues to be the oldest trophy in the United States that's handed out at the junior level. So I certainly can understand why people wouldn't want to change it. But it is extremely heavy. There is not I put it up against any trophy around. I mean, almost 60 pounds is just, it's amazing. It is very, very heavy.
Watching some guys struggle with it last year, trying to hold the thing up. But obviously, like you said, Alex, we're kind of getting ready here at Vinny said as well, getting ready for the start of the playoffs, which will start tomorrow. We're filming this on Thursday here, but let's just kind of jump right into it. The Central Division will be the number 1 Austin Bruins against the number 4 Minot Minotauros, and the number 2 Aberdeen Wings against the St. Cloud Norsemen. Let's just talk about that first matchup. Obviously, Austin has been lights out through the Central Division all season long, but we're going to step into Kyrias's corner and kind of see your take on this matchup.
Well, this year is interesting, guys, because I think that besides the Midwest Division, everybody, the East, the Central, the South, so Austin, Maryland, Oklahoma, I mean, they've had the Division I for over a month. And it's tough because, can you flip that switch? And so that's what Austin specifically, as we're talking in the Central Division, has to do. I mean, they literally have to go from saying, well, we've been playing for 3 or 4 weeks without technically a purpose. We've got the Division I. I've seen them play a lot of different players. Credit to them, using some affiliates, using some 3HL call-ups. So they're probably trying to get a little bit healthy. They're probably trying to, figure some things out for next year. But at the end of the day, Minot has been playing playoff hockey like Aberdeen for the last 2 months, basically all year. But after you start looking at the standings, you're like, oh my gosh. I mean, Aberdeen, it's amazing because if they lose that game Saturday, they're out. And if they win, they're in second place. That's really tough to, who the heck could be calling me at this time of day? But, that's amazing to me because you lose and you're done and you win. Oh, by the way, you're in second place and you have home ice. I mean, that is very, very rare to come across. So I'm really intrigued about this Austin Minot series. Austin has a decision to make of who they're going to play in goal. And that's a big thing. I think Minot settled on their goaltending, but Minot can put the puck in the net. And, with a guy like Chase LaPinta, who put up some incredible rookie numbers, he's in the candidacy here for Rookie of the Year in the NAHL. This is a series that I could very easily see going 5 games simply because of Minot and what they've been doing the last month and a half, which is basically fighting for their playoff lives versus, Austin. They were fantastic basically the entire year and were on cruise control come March. So that's kind of the key in this series is, can Austin flip that switch and be that team that did win the Central Division to knock out, Minot as the 4 seed.
You mentioned Chase LaPinta, 34 goals. Leading the team there, like you said, case for Rookie of the Year there. You also got NHL veteran, longtime player Hunter Longy, who was brought over for offensive firepower. He had 71 points this year, leading the team in scoring. Minot, they played each other the last 2 weekends. Minot won 3 out of those 4 games. Austin owns the season series 8-4, so maybe Minot has some confidence after taking 3 of those last 4. And like you said, Alex, they've been playing that playoff hockey for quite some time now. Maybe they are kind of just in that playoff mode, like you said, and they're just going to ride that wave as far as it will take them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really hopeful that Austin can turn it on. We haven't seen them as a part of the Robertson Cup in a while. Basically the only team in this group of 4 in the Central Division that hasn't been part of the Robertson Cup, there is none. They've all been a part of it. Lately is in terms of the past of I think the last time that Austin was in it, we were in a playdown series, but when they were playing up in Fairbanks, and they were also playing the Minnesota Wilderness, they were a part of it for 2 straight years. But again, St. Cloud, Aberdeen, Minot, those are all teams within the last 5 years that have been at the Robertson Cup. Granted, there's been different coaches and players and things like that, but as an organization, you know exactly what to expect. So I like the fact that all of these teams have been to a Robertson Cup. I like the fact that they all have a really strong fan base following. So it ought to make it a lot of fun. I fully expect these Central Finals to be played on Monday, the week of the Robertson Cup starting, just because that's the way this goes. The Central's crazy and it's tight. and I don't expect the playoffs to be anything less.
Yeah, let's take a look at the top scores real quick. Both teams. I just had that pulled up a second ago. Gavin Morrissey, Walter Zacher, Austin Solani, all putting up some big numbers for Austin. Then you look over at the Minot side of things, as I'll pull that up right now. With Hunter Longy, 71 points, Chase LaPinta, 56, Nick O'Hannison. So yeah, they got guys up front that can score. Let's move over now to the other game in the Central. You have Aberdeen and St. Cloud. Vinny, Alex, what's been standing out to you to these guys?
Well, I gotta say this first because the stat blew my mind when I first saw it. Aberdeen is 8-0 against St. Cloud this year, which 8-0 against one team is that. Talk about a stranglehold. That's gotta be a big confidence booster. Aberdeen coming in.
Well, Aberdeen is going to go as far as Cole Moore takes them. And, Cole has been through his up and downs. He is Aberdeen's number one goaltender. And he's a Bowling Green commit. He's a really big kid. He's won a couple of Star of the Week awards here in the past 3 or 4 weeks. And, Aberdeen doesn't have that, we think Aberdeen, we think of the team that, won 51 games and lost 4 games, going to the playoffs and went all the way to the Robertson Cup finals. And those Aberdeen teams are absolutely stacked top to bottom. This year's Aberdeen team is maybe not that group. It's a group that's lost some players with injury. It's a group that doesn't have that, prolific goal scorer that we've seen in the past. But the reason that Aberdeen is where they are is because of goalie Cole Moore. Now, on the flip side, St. Cloud has some decisions to make because they've got 3 goalies on their roster. And I'm going to be interested to see who is going to get the call here for game number 1 in the series. And if the series isn't going well, I mean, are they set on one guy? Because you've got the commit Thomas Bolo. He hasn't played a lot. Ethan Dahlmeyer has been the guy they've been going to most recently. He played the most games, but now you've got this guy that's the goalie of the future, and Will Ingeman, that played basically all year. He played 6 games, and then he played his high school season. He was named goalie of the year, Metropolitan Player of the Year in Minnesota, and then he comes back to the team where he is right now. So, obviously you've got some decisions to make if you're the coaching staff there in St. Cloud, because St. Cloud does have some, guys that can put the puck in the net. They've got, 4 or 5 guys over 16 goals. The rookie Andrew Clark, Cade Peterson, Blake Perbix, their defenseman Broughton Zabel. All these guys have over 40 points. So this series to me comes down to goaltending. St. Cloud has got to get it. If Cole Moore is going to be hot, then I think Aberdeen wins this one. Keep in mind, Aberdeen only has 1 guy with over 40 points. So, again, St. Cloud, a lot of guys offensively that can get it done. Aberdeen, more of a guy by committee. But I think the best goalie wins this series.
I like the one thing you mentioned with the goaltending situation in St. Cloud. Bolo was the guy that they rode with all the way to Robertson Cup. And you could argue that, he won a couple of those series for them against Bismarck. Bismarck was hot as can be going into the postseason last year. And now you got Bolo with the experience. You got Ingeman. You got Dahlmeyer, like you said. A big decision coming up, and I think it's going to determine their playoff fate.
Yep, I agree.
Let's move over now to the Eastern side. Big matchup. You have the Maryland Black Bears, who have been, as we said, one point throughout this podcast and maybe caught a little ridicule for it. Unstoppable, untouchable, but they came out number 1 in the Eastern side, and they will be facing off against the 4th seed, the Northeast Generals. But Maryland, plenty of offense up front, and from the blue line, you have Christian Catalano, who we've talked about all season long, 57 points. You got Brad McNeil with 55 points behind him, and then Sean Kilcullen, the defenseman, with 43 points. You have another defenseman, Luke Van Wy, who's been throwing up numbers as well with 41. But you guys can take it away from there. Like I said, Maryland is on paper the favorite in this series.
Yeah, and I like to. Yeah, and I'd like to point out the Generals, though, won the season series, 5 games to 3 taken. but they obviously have not been playing their best as of late, as they were swept in their final regular season series by Danbury. But, I mean, like you said, the numbers just tell you Maryland. They're better on the penalty kill. They're better on the power play. They score more goals. They give up less goals. Right. All those signals point to Maryland. But then Northeast just maybe might have their number.
Alex, anything?
I mean, look, another toss-up here. It's really tough to predict these things because, again, like in the East, I mean, Northeast Generals have the leading scorer in the league.
Yeah.
David Andrechuk. So you can't, and right behind him, Paul Minahan and LaRusso, who just committed. I mean, Northeast's problem is not putting pucks in the net. It's, really trying to make sure that they're solid defensively and they're not, giving up anything stupid or taking stupid penalties. In Maryland, I mean, look, credit to Maryland because last year, they were in January the first place team, and things were going really well. And then it was a collapse, and they didn't even make the playoffs. This year they were in the same spot, and they played well enough to win the division and win it relatively early. So I would think that Maryland right now is saying, look, we have been close the past couple of years. Maryland has been a extremely well-run organization. They have a great following there. You feel like they're one of the teams that is just on the cusp of getting ready to do something great. We've seen a absolute plethora of different teams qualify for the Robertson Cup in the East. So I think Maryland goes into this one saying, why not us? Let's make sure that we keep things simple. Let's make sure that we play 5-on-5 hockey. And I think that Maryland feels like, with that said, they can win the series. But to Vinny's point, Northeast is the wild card here. They've got guys that can put the puck in the net. They have the season advantage, and it's just right now we have no idea what General's team is going to show up. Brian Erickson is a great motivator, but I also know that when it's going the other way, it can be bad. So, I'll be real interested to see that game 1, game 2. I really feel like Maryland has got to win one, if not both of those games, because I think, when the Generals get back in their place, they can be a tough team to beat.
Well, and they're pesky. They're right. They got that little attitude about them, and I like to think last year's, in Brian Erickson's words, 0.00001 second left loss to New Jersey in Game 5. That's got to be some kind of motivation for the returners on that team.
Yeah, it does. I mean, look, weird things happen in playoff hockey, and that was certainly a weird thing that happened last year. We've seen some weird things happen in the NHL, but that's the playoffs. That's what makes them great. I'm really excited about the group that is in the East because any one of them, can represent them, their division well at the Robertson Cup. So I think this group is going to be exciting to watch, and I think that this Generals Maryland series, I'm not sure it's going to be a sweep. I think it goes at least 4 or 5 games.
Let's jump over now to the other game in the East side. The reigning champions, the New Jersey Titans, will host the Maine Nordiques. They'll take on number 2 and number 3. But let's talk about those teams. New Jersey, kind of a rocky start from the beginning of the year, and then obviously Craig Duranis getting things back in place of what he wants out of his guys. I talked about Maine pretty much the first episode of our podcast, saying how I think that they were going to use that veteran mentality and experience that they have, that they play with, and bring it into the postseason. And you kind of look at both teams as well. Michael Young, 60 points. Levin, I'm going to butcher his last name, so number 24, 52 points. Sorry, buddy. Dominic Barteco, 52 points. Brandon Dumas, 51 points. So returner there, some veterans. And then you look at Maine. They got Gibbons up front. Hallberg, 58, 54 points. And behind them is their center, Philip Weiberg, with 49 points. But let's just kind of talk about the goaltending and this matchup over the second matchup in the East.
Well, on one side, you got Zachary Bryce. He's been really good, kind of emerged as the guy there, taking over for Andrew Tackix, who, how do I want to word this? He was a lightning rod during the postseason. but he got the job done. Big shutout in the championship game. Now it's Bryce's turn. He's 25-8-3, 229, 921. Had 3 shutouts this year. The net is his. He's got a good team in front of him. I really like the Titans. I really do. They got that veteran leadership who won last year. They added on with Bartechko. I just think they're a really good team. They're going to be really tough to beat. Maine, I like them too, but I like the Titans a little more.
Well, Maine hasn't played well. I mean, it's not a secret. You can look at the stats and what they've done here in the last month, basically since the beginning of March, and they just have not played well. They did enough to get in the playoffs, but New Jersey has to be chomping at the bit to be getting back to Blaine and showing what they can do. We haven't had a back-to-back champion in quite a long time. Ever since 2009-10, and we're going back into the Jeff Brown, John Cooper era with the St. Louis Bandits. So, again, I really like Maine. I really like New Jersey in this series, but Maine does have the capability to make it close and even win the series. New Jersey is very tough to play at home during the competition. My only thought about New Jersey is that they may be looking ahead a little bit. So they've got to wane against that, but they've got enough guys who were part of that team last year to defend to make sure that doesn't happen. So again, I kind of agree with Vinny here, giving New Jersey the edge, but certainly I don't think it's going to be a sweep. I think Maine could be pesky and even take this series if they kind of kindle back to the middle of the year when they were playing probably the best hockey in the East.
Move over now to probably the tightest conference, I would argue, in the NAHL this year. The Midwest Division, we have 4 teams coming out of there, with Wisconsin taking number 1. They will take on the number 4 Chippewa Steel, and then on the other bracket side of it will be Minnesota, who's the 2nd seed against the Kenai River Brown Bears. So, like I said, it was back and forth every night, any given Friday, in a sense of who's going to be first place, second place, third place, fourth place in that division. But we got 4 now, and congratulations to Wisconsin, who came out as number 1 in the Midwest, in their first season. But guys,
I think this is going to be the best series. I think I should probably unmute myself here. I think this is going to be the best series. I think this series right here is going to be the goaltending matchup we're all looking forward to. Excuse me. You got Gavin Moffat, Maxwell Beckford on one side, and you got Adam Gajan on the other. And I know numbers-wise it says Moffat and Beckford, but obviously Gajan is the NHL-ranked goaltender. He's got NHL scouts looking. We might hear his name in June in Nashville. I just think this is going to come down to goaltending, and if any team can get hot and ride a goaltender to a Robertson Cup appearance, I think it's his Chippewa Steel Club. We got Sam Rice in there, JJ Granda. You got Kate Nielsen. You got a lot of talent on that Chippewa side. It's their first go around the playoffs. You don't know what you don't know. So if you could ride that goaltending to a series win and maybe a second one and go to the Robertson Cup, I think it's possible for this Chippewa Steel Club.
I kind of agree with you, Vinny, although I think the Wendigo are probably on a mission here. There are 2 forwards that really intrigue me in this series, Luke Lewandowski for Wisconsin, and you mentioned him, Sam Rice for Chippewa. These are 2 guys who have played their best hockey at this point in the season. To me, it's a little bit tough if you're going to be trading off goalies. I think at this part of the year, you probably got to go with one guy, and I think that Gavin Moffat in the middle of the season was a little bit of an anomaly. I think they brought him in to clearly be the second guy, and they just weren't getting the play out of Beckford that they wanted. So Moffat stepped in and, all of a sudden put together like 3 straight shutouts and, goalie of the month award. And he was lighting the world on fire. And recently that hasn't been the case. And they've gone back to Beckford as the starter. I would imagine that Beckford gets the start in this series and they're going to ride him until, something doesn't go in their favor and they may switch it up. But the Steel know who they're going with. And, that's the thing about Gajan is in the World Juniors, This is a guy that was stopping Team Canada and Connor Bedard. So he's been in this situation before where they've kind of been the underdog, and he knows exactly what's happening. I think the good news for both teams, whoever wins this series going to the finals, is that the travel is nothing in this series.
Right.
It's a Wisconsin team versus Wisconsin team. I don't know how far apart they are, probably no more than an hour or so. But in the other series, you're going to have some travel that's going to be occurring. And so I think the edge in the Midwest finals is going to go to the team that wins this series. Obviously, you look at the standings and think Wendigo. The Wendigo were the one team that won their division that kind of went down to the last couple of weeks. So they haven't been on cruise control, but they've been really good. I mean, the Wendigo in their last 10 are 8-2. That leads the division. So they're playing some really good hockey. They can also put the puck in the net, and that's what I like about them. So small edge to the Wendigo, but I think that wild card, Gajan, is he could win the series by himself, given that it's only 5 games.
So then the other bracket, starting to turn this down here. Minnesota Wilderness, number 2 seed against the Kenai River Brown Bears. That'll get started again tomorrow with 2 games in Minnesota. And then game 3, if Minnesota is up, to Friday, April 28th at Kenai River. So kind of a little crazy series there. Or game 3, if the series is tied, will be up in Kenai if they are up 2-0. Sunday, April 23rd at Minnesota 5:15. So a little crazy travel schedule there, Alex, as you kind of mentioned. But get right into this one.
Well,
go ahead.
Kenai is going to go as far as Niels Wallstrom, their goalie, will take them. At the beginning of the season, if you said, hey, one Alaska team's going to make the playoffs and it's going to be Kenai. No offense against Kenai, but Fairbanks has never missed the playoffs, and Anchorage was in the title game last year.
Yeah.
So with Anchorage and Fairbanks out of the mix and Kenai being the lone Alaska team left, I just hope there's not that, hey, we're just happy to be here kind of feeling. There wasn't that feeling the last time in their playoffs. And you know what? Give me a couple Coach of the Year votes for Taylor Shaw. A fantastic job up there. 32 wins is nothing to sneeze at in the Midwest Division. But again, I think that if Niels Wallstrom plays lights out like he can, this series may go the distance. The Wilderness are really good, top to bottom, defensively. They've got the goaltending. They've got offense. The Wilderness is a team that I would be not surprised at all to win this, to win the entire thing, to be honest with you. I just think that, they've come in there. They've played really well for their new head coach, Brett Skinner. And, I like the Wilderness a little bit in this series, but Niels Wallstrom is going to have to play lights out for the Brown Bears to win it.
Yeah, on the defensive side for Minnesota, like you mentioned, Isaac Posh, 25-13-6, a 212 goals against, 926 save percentage, 4 shutouts, solid numbers. And as a whole, Minnesota gave up the 5th fewest amount of goals this season in the North American Hockey League. So like you said, defensively, that team is going to be very tough to get pucks by. So I like Minnesota. That, like you said, that travel may come into play depending on how that series works out with, who's up after the 2 games. We might see a game 3 on Sunday. We might not. Kenai River, like you said, they made the playoffs a couple years ago, but they did not have a home game because of COVID and all that stuff. So I would be interested to see how Soldotna, Alaska gets down for a playoff game.
Yeah, it's going to be nuts up there.
All right, so we're going to go to the South Division now. I'm going to turn myself down one more time. Number 1 overall seed in the South, Oklahoma Warriors, will take on number 4, the Amarillo Wranglers. And then the second seed, Lone Star Brahmas, will take on the 3rd seed, the Shreveport Mudbugs. So Vinny and I were talking off screen. He has a fantastic stat that he wants to share. But obviously Oklahoma has been unbelievable all season long. Lone Star's been great. Shreveport's been great. And then Amarillo, they went on a little, we'll call it a nosedive there for a minute, and found their way back up in the air and have not found themselves in the playoffs.
Yeah, if you were to line up frozen on the one screen, that's weird. Oh, there I am. Okay. If you were to line up all the NHL teams from number 1 to number 29, let's take a look. The first, 3rd, 5th, and 9th place teams are all in the South. and the 10th place team did not make the playoffs. That'd be the New Mexico Ice Wolves.
Wow.
So the top five of the teams in the South were the top 10 teams overall in terms of points. That's insane. That just goes to show what a grind that the South Division is.
Right.
And the fact that you basically have 1 versus 9 and 3 versus 5 at this point in just the first round just goes to show how insane these South Division playoffs are going to be.
Right.
Alex, obviously you've been following along all year working in our office. What do you see about the South and what do you like about it?
Well, I think that the teams are pretty happy probably with the matchups, given the fact that travel's not going to be that bad. I think there's some scenarios in the South that you could be like, oh my gosh, travel is going to be a factor. Not the case. I mean, Oklahoma and Amarillo are close. Lone Star, Shreveport are close. I mean, you're talking about a 2.5 or 3 hour drive, so it's not going to be anything. So they should be, going full throttle in all of these games. But again, here's the thing. You've got the Lone Star Shreveport series, and when you look at the goalie leaders in the NHL, it's these two teams. They just do not give up much. And it might not be the most exciting thing, but personally, I really like a 2-1 playoff game that's just a grudge match, physical, everything that playoffs should be. And that's exactly what we're going to get with Lone Star and Shreveport. Two teams that know each other. They don't like each other. It seems they're going to see each other every single year in the South playoffs. And rightfully, I think that the winner of that series can probably say to themselves, we may be considered the favorites to go to the Robertson Cup. Now, you move on to Oklahoma and Amarillo. Look, Oklahoma, they've had this thing sewn up for a month and a half. And I don't think that they were at all concerned of going to New Mexico last weekend and being swept. That's okay. They weren't really playing for anything. They didn't have any records to play for. They knew they had the league's best record sewn up, whereas Amarillo has, to win 9 in a row and get into the playoff by 1 win and 1 point is incredible. So are the Wranglers going to have the gas to go up to Oklahoma and say, let's keep playing like we do? I don't know. Harry Mahood is a very good, experienced coach, but there's something that sneaks into me that says this is the time for Garrett Roth. He's worked hard to get to this point. He has built this team. It wasn't just built this year. He has spent years constructing a team that is exactly like they are right now. And offensively, they're going to be very, very hard to stop. They had, the best goal differential in the league, and frankly, it wasn't even close. And to do that against South Division teams in that South Division over the course of 60 games is tough. So I'm just wondering, after this 9-0 run that Amarillo is currently on, is that sustainable? So that's I think the key to this division is, can Amarillo go up to Oklahoma in games 1 and 2 and say, okay, we're going to still continue this, huge high that we're on and ride it all the way to Blaine. I don't know. That's going to be really tough to do, because that is going to be a couple months of maintaining the absolute most positive mental focus, and that takes a lot of energy. The mental game is just as tough as the physical game. So that's kind of what I see in those two series. I mean, I think Oklahoma is chomping at the bit to show that for real, to get to the Robertson Cup. And meanwhile, Amarillo, I mean, are they just happy to be there after this 9 in a row? Or, do they have the mentality to say, hey guys, we've made it this far, let's keep this roll going?
And Oklahoma, you mentioned, was the top team offensively, the only team in the league to average over 4 goals per game. And then, like you said, the goal differential was not even close. Well, they were, really good at keeping the puck out of the net too. Third in the league, third in the South Division, which is also incredible, like you mentioned with Lone Star and Shreveport. But yeah, I kind of on the Alex train here. I think that Amarillo, like to keep that going, the way the playoff games are played differently than the regular season, I think it's gonna be really tough for them to maintain. And like you said, Oklahoma's ready to go. Garrett Roth has been there since the team was built 3 years ago. And like you said, he's constructed this roster. They got a handful of guys that have been there all 3 years. So it's going to be one of those things where I think Oklahoma is going to be able to flip the switch. They've been on cruise control, but I think they're going to turn it on right here. Lone Star Shreveport, I mean, they've got plenty of playoff history. Last year, they played each other with Lone Star getting the series win. They played each other back in 2019, I believe. They had a 5-game classic going to triple overtime in game 5 that Shreveport won. Shreveport won the South Division Finals in 2018 to go to the Robertson Cup, which they eventually won. Lone Stars won a Robertson Cup in the last 5-6 years. So, I mean,
It's a lot of history.
A lot of history between those two clubs. And I think we are just going to have an absolute dogfight. And I'm setting the over-under for total goals scored in the series at 15.5.
Really?
It's 100. Well, it's going 5 games. It's going to be 2-1 every game. Maybe
I
a
was gonna say,
3-1 with an empty
didn't
netter.
Vinny Paracelli once or twice or multiple times call the way Lone Star plays boring?
I'll say it, it's boring. I'll say Ryan Anderson, get at me.
At Ryan Anderson. Alex, get your hot scoop.
What's my hot scoop?
Or your hot take, pardon me. Let's do your hot take.
Again, that Lone Star Shreveport series is a pick'em. Again, I don't know about Amarillo, Oklahoma. I mean, I'm assuming that everybody is looking at Oklahoma and thinking that, 19-point difference is enough for them to, win in a 3-game series over Amarillo. But again, like Amarillo is the hottest team in the league coming in the playoffs. Hottest team in the league. So who's to say that they can't go up to Oklahoma in games 1 and 2 this weekend and have some success? They've been filling that barn pretty well in Amarillo. So, if it goes back to Amarillo 1-1, I mean, I'd look out because that's a hot team. Guys like Ben Ivy have been playing well. Harry knows what it's like to be in the playoffs, as does Garrett. But, again, I think that when you look at the playoffs as a whole, it's tough not to look at the South and think, gosh, whoever comes out of there has got to be the favorite for Blaine. And that's exactly why I love these scenarios, is because, I think that, you could pick any one of those teams from the South to go up there to Blaine and represent the division really well. The South had a really good showing at top prospects, and a lot of those players have committed since that event. So, this is when it gets real, guys. I mean, we think working the office makes you tired, and we've been doing this since early September, but, I mean, this is ultimately why you're doing this. All the crap you go through the regular season, the 60 games, the sicknesses, the bumps and bruises, the call-ups, the
Bus rides.
IRs, the traveling, the bus rides. I mean, this is, the next 2 to 4 weeks is going to define exactly what's going to happen and who moves on forever in infamy and lore. There's still a group of guys that you asked me at the beginning of this podcast with the tornado, still a group of guys that I keep in touch with, and most now are retired and they're dads and, have their own businesses, which seems crazy. And I've grown and been able to add to my family as well. But you always talk about the stories of, when you won those cups and who it was against and what you had to go through. And the teams that win it will definitely look back, 20 years from now and think, gosh, what we had to go through, that was a special group. And I saw something today that, it really is the players that carry a team to a championship. I think you can be well coached. You can have a great ownership. You can have a wonderful fan base. But really, it's those 23 to 25 guys in the locker room that put their minds to it and accomplish something special. So, It's exciting that it starts tomorrow. I love playoff hockey. I love the fact that, you play till somebody wins and there's no more shootouts. There's no more any of that. And, you know what? Guys are going to get hurt. Fans are going to boo because of a call and things like that. And I guess that's what makes it special. So I'm excited to get it going.
I've got one question for Alex because you've been with the team side, you've seen what goes through the day to day, all that. You've been the league side. Basically, you've seen the last 20 Robertson Cups. What's the one factor that you think separates the winners from the losers?
Defense. I think
Goalie guy, naturally.
I think that, and that's a team thing, guys. I mean, look, I've seen some really, really good offensive teams not win cups. And, I've seen some really good offensive teams win cups, but then you look at, defensively what they did. The St. Louis Bandits of 2007 had to go through a tornado team that had just won 3 cups. And they had this guy on the team named Pat Maroon who
Never heard of him.
basically just put the team on his shoulder and said, I'm going to win us a cup. I'm tired of Texas winning. And in the South Division Finals, he was phenomenal. He was a one-man wrecking crew and finally beat us. And then they went up to Fairbanks, Alaska for the Robertson Cup that year. And he has a record that is still there today with most points in a Robertson Cup playoff. And I think it's 23 points he had in the playoffs that year. And he was MVP. And I wasn't even there to see it in terms of the Robertson Cup finals. I was just there to witness what happened in the South. But, you got to be well coached. Obviously, we knew the coach of that team. You look down the lineup of coaches that have won the Robertson Cup and you think, okay, well, it was his time because, example, last year, Craig Doremus. We respect Craig for a long time in this league. And I think that, when New Jersey won the cup last year, I was really happy for him because he has paid his dues, not only in the NHL, but in hockey in general. So that always plays a factor. But again, I think there's really 2 big factors, guys, in teams that win. And it's health and it's luck. Health, obviously, you've got to have your top guys out there. And if the guys do get hurt, are there guys that can come in and be a factor, not be scared to make a difference and even be a guy that, oh gosh, I only played 12 regular season games. Well, guess what? Now we need you. Or, hey, the main goalie gets hurt and here comes the backup. Can that next guy step up? And luck. I don't know how many times I've seen, a shot miss by an inch or deflect off a goalie's blocker and then hit a crossbar with 1 minute left. There was the year that Aberdeen won that Matt Vernon made a save that he had no business making. Fairbanks really should have scored and tied it because they had all the momentum in the world. But you know what? He just decided to throw his body over there and see what happens. And somehow it hit his glove. Or a puck makes a weird hop this way and it gets to a stick or, gets deflected. So I would say that when you look at who has won the Robertson Cup here, specifically, in the last 10 years, they've all probably been relatively healthy and they've all had some luck go their way. And, there are plenty of teams out there that have not won Robertson Cups that probably should have. I think of the Minot team in 2018, the team of destiny that
the 16 seed.
Yeah. I mean, literally the last seed, and there they are playing for a cup and they're right there. And just a break here, a break there. And all of a sudden you're talking about, maybe one of the biggest upsets in Robertson Cup history. But, so that's what's neat about it. I'm really excited to be going back to Blaine. I think it's the perfect venue. But it all starts here with this division semifinals. I mean, it's just there's gonna be some lucky things that happen. There's gonna be some adversity that you've got to adapt to, and you've got to have a team that's gonna be healthy. And if some guys get hurt, can that next guy step up?
slight history lesson a little bit, not for you, Alex, because you've seen it all. But that 51 win Aberdeen team needed 5 games, and they were in overtime in round 1, and they barely got by Minot. And then they, of course, got all the way to the championship and lost, which leads me to your next question. You've been to a lot of Robertson Cups. You've seen it all. I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but what is the best game in Robertson Cup history, in your opinion?
Well, I don't know if I can say it was the best game, because you kind of go back, a ways. I was really impressed, with a couple of ones that I can remember. Obviously, I think that I brought up the 2007 one where St. Louis started their 3-year run. John Cooper, Pat Maroon. I wasn't there, but well versed in what had happened. Going up the list, I think that the 3 that the Tornado won were obviously memorable, only because the last 2 of those they actually lost in the round robin, and had to come from behind and win those titles. We've gone through different formats, but I think 2015 is probably for me the most memorable, where the Minnesota Wilderness beat the Austin Bruins in what was a playdown series. But game 1 of that series, guys, was the longest game in NAHL history. Little over 5 hours. I think it was 5 hours, maybe 37 minutes, 4 or 5 overtimes. I can't even remember. And the game was like 2-1. And it was 86 degrees in Austin. 12:37, I believe, that the game ended. I think it started at 7:00. And that was, game 1. I couldn't believe it. And then the next night, nobody had anything left. I think that 2018, 2019 Shreveport Aberdeen years, when Fogarty Arena is just absolutely packed to the gills, those were awesome games. I mean, just the level of play was amazing. Shreveport beat Minot and Aberdeen beat Fairbanks, and everybody had the right to win that thing. And it was kind of neat because I think that Shreveport and Aberdeen are organizations that, after they win a cup, I mean, it lasts for 3 or 4 months, the celebration tour. And both of those teams took advantage of that opportunity and were really good. You have to remember that the other really, really good one was 2021, because
That's my favorite.
Shreveport and Aberdeen, Aberdeen had such this great regular season, and credit to them for trying to win, quote unquote, 2 in a row. But we were coming off a one in 2020 that was canceled. There was a lot of unfinished business, so to speak. And Shreveport and Aberdeen, when they played that game in 2021, it was like a professional game, because both teams had older players. Both teams were built to win cups. Aberdeen is coming off this tremendous regular season. Shreveport is Shreveport. It was a war. You had players on those teams that, if given a different situation, they may have been playing in another country, in another junior league, but because of the lockdowns that were continuing in Canada, the level of play that year, that was the year that we almost reached 400 committed players in one season. I think every kid on the ice on those 2 teams was committed, or almost. So that was an extremely, extremely good game. Maybe in terms of level of play, probably the best I've ever seen. But those are just a few samplings of those over the last 10 to 20 years that I remember the most.
I would say that Shreveport Aberdeen championship is my favorite. And if you remember correctly, you talk about how good those teams were. The backup goalie for Shreveport was drafted into the NHL that year. Didn't play a single game of the Robertson Cup, but is good enough to get drafted. So that's how good that team was. I think about the double overtime semifinal game between New Jersey and New Mexico last year. You had the Titans tying it up late, then winning in the double overtime. And we thought we were going to have an easy day with the one game. And then we saw that happen. I think one more that comes to mind of recent memory is definitely the Amarillo not Amarillo, Johnstown Fairbanks game where Fairbanks was up big, like I think 4-0 to the first. Johnstown made it 4-3, and it was a back and forth game. And I can't remember the goal. Oh, the goalie, he was a little Scholl, Matthias Scholl. He like made some great saves, and then Fairbanks was able to finish him off. I thought that was like one of the better ones in 19. But yeah, we've had a handful of really good games last 5 years, at least as long as I've been around.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen different formats too, and I just again from a league standpoint, and I know that teams would love to play a Robertson Cup championship game in their building. Don't get me wrong. I've seen it. The atmosphere that I saw both in Austin and in Fairbanks in 2014 and 2015. I mean, the place is packed and you're playing for everything on the line, and to win it in front of your, home fans and everything is fantastic. I've seen it Memorial Cup style, which was the style for a long time. I just think that the league and its owners got it right where with what we're doing currently with Fogarty Arena. And maybe one day it doesn't go there. Maybe one day it's, another, location that's neutral and people can get to. But look, I mean, you're playing it in May, late May in Minnesota, the state of hockey. No matter who is in that championship game, we've seen that people show up for it because, how many times do you get to see a national championship game of that magnitude? So you'll have the parents there, you have some fans there, but, the locals like it up there as well because, again, there's not much going on. So every year I appreciate this format. I think that when the teams get there, they're treated like kings by the league. I think they appreciate that because it's like almost a reward for getting there. Hey, we made it through. We're the division champs, and now we're going to be treated as such. So I think it just allows for a neat atmosphere. I think it's a fair way to play it too. I mean, that one and done thing is really tough, and people will argue that maybe the championship game has got to go 3 games, but I think that the way that we do the semifinals and giving a team another chance, which we've seen time and time again, that those teams have use those second chances to win game 2 and then win game 3 and move on and win the cup. I like a winner take all game. I'll be honest with you. And it forces the cream to rise to the top. And yeah, they don't do it in the NHL, but there are several sports that do it. The NCAA does it to crown their hockey champion. The NFL does it to crown their football champion. It is a winner take all. And guess what? If you have a bad day, you'll remember it forever. And if you have a great day, you'll remember it forever because you'll be raising a cup. So that really brings out the, intestinal fortitude of players, even if they're only 20 years old, to see, who's going to lift the cup.
It all starts Friday night, which is tomorrow, April 21st. Robertson Cup Championships will start in Fogarty on May 19th as well. And Alex, talk a little bit on how people can get tickets if that's available yet.
Well, I think we're planning on doing a pre-sale on May 1st for the Robertson Cup in Blaine, Minnesota. And again, it's at Fogarty Arena. Game ones are on May 19th. So that's 1 versus 4 and 2 versus 3. Game 2, Saturday, May 20th. And then if necessary, game 3s are on Sunday, May 21st. We'll have a day off, and then on Tuesday, May 23rd, is a winner-take-all Robertson Cup championship game. So we're hoping to put pre-sale tickets out there Monday, May 1st, be it, tournament passes or daily passes. Obviously, you don't know if or when your team is playing, but people may just want to come out and watch it regardless of the team. So
Right.
We're going to do a pre-sale this year, which is going to be exciting. For any of the games, obviously coming up here this weekend, you can look at the home teams and see what's going on, but I expect some great crowds out there, some rowdy crowds. Again, there's nothing like playoff hockey. So hopefully everybody just has a very good time, remembers it forever. And we'll see who the next crop of guys are that are going to put that name on that 57-pound cup.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of playoffs, a lot of alumni from the NHL, 15 of them are playing currently in the first round of the NHL finals. So I can run through that list real quick. Rope Hintz, Phil Kessel, Blake Lazat, Kyle Palmieri, Nick Foligno, Ryan Suter, Paul Cotter, Ian Cole, Pat Maroon, Patrick Kane, Derek Forbert, John Merrill, Matt Nieto, I said that wrong, Nieto, sorry, Eric Johnson, and Jack Johnson. So congrats to all those guys, and obviously it's cool to see the ladder development. These guys move on to play at the professional level.
Yeah, I love Tampa. I was fortunate enough to go to the Stanley Cup Game 1 when Tampa played Chicago in 2015, and saw Game 1 down at Amalie Arena in Tampa, and it was the first time I've been to a Stanley Cup game.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It was during that time that, John Cooper was coaching, Ben Bishop was in goal. We had, I think, 8 or 9 alumni in that championship, Stanley Cup final. 8 or 9 alumni with those two teams. So going, booth to booth at Media Day was an incredible experience. And I'm really happy for what Tampa has done under John Cooper. I tell the story that the first time I met John was the fall of 2003. The Tornado were headed to Texarkana in the Four States Fairgrounds for their first matchup of the year, but let's call it October of 2003. I had no idea where to set up. There wasn't a major broadcast effort back in those days, but I did have a soundboard. I did have a computer. We did some webcasting over our website. So I see that they're still constructing the boards and the glass when the Tornado get there around 5 o'clock for a 7 o'clock game. And I saw some guy in a suit on the ice who was putting up plexiglass and boards, and he was next to a young lady. So I went up to him and I said, hey, my name's Alex Kyrias. I'm with the Texas Tornado. Where would I set up if I'm broadcasting? And they both pointed up to this kind of rodeo booth up there. And so I said, thank you so much. And I shook his hand and I said, I'm Alex Kyrias. I'm doing the media and broadcasting for the Tornado. And he said, oh, I'm John Cooper, the head coach. And I'm like, the heck you doing out here putting up plexiglass and dasher boards and things like that? He's like, oh, we do it. And then the lady next to me introduced me to was Kim Cannon, who was kind of there all in one everything lady helping him out. She was really nice during that. And ultimately, she was the one who unfortunately passed away, that we remember yearly now with our Kim Cannon intern. So that's a pretty cool story. Like John Cooper putting up boards and plexiglass and, now,
2 hours for the game.
Yeah, now he's been in. I don't think he does that at Amalie Arena anymore. He's probably in his nice coach's office, but it's neat because they've been in 3 straight finals, and that's cool. And obviously with the memorialization of Kim Cannon, that was a neat experience. I did not expect that, as a young kid going in. So I went up and sat down, and there was about a half an inch of dirt that I had to get removed because again, it was the first time for hockey in that barn, and it literally was a rodeo barn, and they were getting it ready, 2 hours before game time. So that was a neat experience.
That's awesome. Alex, appreciate you coming on the podcast. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Love the work you guys do, and I'll be glued to the screen for the next one during the playoffs.